All right. And we're live. Hi, y'all. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Maverick Moses, and we are doing the live chat for our February book of the month of Book Fiends Club, Kill Creek by Scott Thomas. So just a little bit about me. I am an author of the upcoming YA Dark Urban Fantasy trilogy, Karma's Children, coming hopefully in the next few months. And joining me today is going to be Don Kurtagich and Marie Ventris. And later on, we're going to be joined by Cassandra Carpio of the Bookish Crypt, who is our other co-host of the Book Fiends Club. And she's going to be joining on in a few minutes. She's just running a little late, but she will be here. But before we get into talking about Kill Creek by Scott Thomas, which was our February book of the month, let's go ahead and go around and let me introduce you to my co-hosts. Let's start with Don Kurtagich.
Hey guys, this is so exciting. This is my first chat because I missed our first one. So even though this is the second one, it's my first. So I'm Dawn Kurtagich. I'm a YA author. I write horror, and obviously it's the best genre. I've written 3 books so far: The Dead House, which was my debut, and The Trees Crept In, which was my second, and the forthcoming Teeth in the Mist, which is out in June. And I'm a horror fiend.
Yes, awesome. And for those of you who don't know, I discovered Don Kurtagich's debut novel, The Dead House, in mid last year or so, and I freaking loved the book, and I quickly connected with Don Kurtagich on Instagram, and so thankful to have her as a co-host for Book Fiends and be able to call her a friend now.
Yeah, absolutely. We talk writing as well on the side.
Yeah,
always fun.
All right. Next up, we have Marie Ventris. Can you introduce yourself, Marie?
Hello, I am Marie Ventris. I've written 6 books, but I've only published 3 of them, and I'm working on my 7th right now. I mostly write dark fantasy, whether it be contemporary or high fantasy, but I also write horror and sci-fi, and that's about it.
Your most recent novel came out a couple of months ago, right?
Yes, it did. Castle and Coyote.
Nice. I've started, so I haven't finished that yet, but I started reading it. And if any of you follow Marie on Instagram, she does the most amazing captions. And her book is basically like a giant form of that caption. Those captions, it very much embodies her.
Well, that's awesome.
I need to read it. I need to get it and just splurge on it.
It's a really quick read.
I like quick reads. I'm a very slow reader, actually. I read 1 book in February, and it was this one.
You were not alone. I'm a slow reader. A little confession time. I finished the last chapter of this like an hour ago.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
I was really on a time crunch.
It's really fresh in your mind, though.
Yes, definitely. Oh, Cass is here. She's in the comments. So she'll be joining us on the live a little bit soon, I'm sure. And we already have a couple of viewers. Hi guys, welcome on in. So let's just talk about first our initial thoughts about Kill Creek. Don, do you want to start?
So first of all, for you guys who haven't read it and are here for the non-spoilery bit, the book is about 4 different horror authors who are invited by a website interviewer person who's kind of weird and he's very popular. He's known for creating podcasts and interviews with celebrities and horror aficionados that are a bit to the left of center. a bit off the beaten track. So he invites these 4 very well-known horror authors to come to this very haunted house. Each of the horror authors are completely different. They write different versions of horror, which I loved about the book. And so they've brought to this haunted house, and they're each skeptical. Like, all of them are skeptical about whether the house is haunted or not. And the thing that makes this book cool is that within the novel, there is a book, a non-fiction book that's been written about the house on Kill Creek. So it's so meta. It's like you've got these 4 horror authors that are going to this house for an interview, talking about a book that's been written about this house, which has a disturbing history. Not 1, but 2 disturbing histories. It's so meta. There's so many layers. It was absolutely fantastic. It was like my first 5-star read in ages. Absolutely loved it. So I'll go more in detail when we get to the spoilery part, but I just really enjoyed it. I love the characters.
That's awesome, Don. So I'm kind of like laughing on the inside because I love how you said this is like your first like 5-star read in a while. I did not attach to it as well as you did, I guess. But maybe you can convince me otherwise. We'll see. Oh, hi, Cass. Welcome on in.
Hello.
So everyone here, there's Cass here from the Bookish Crypt is joining us.
Cass!
She is our final co-host of the Book Fiends Club. So welcome her in. Cass, can you tell us a little bit about yourself real quickly before we continue?
Okay, so I am currently writing my first book. It's been on the works for like over a decade. But I'll publish it someday soon. But yeah, I run the Bookish Crypt, the blog, everywhere on social media. I've been blogging for a few years. And yeah, Bookstagram almost every day.
Oh, I love Bookstagram. Bookstagram's
I know.
how we met. Bookstagram is like life, basically.
It is.
Exactly. Bookstagram is how all of us met.
I just love it.
Yeah.
And I love the horror community on Bookstagram, because the thing is, I've been on Bookstagram for ages, and then there are like cliques. And so you've got like the contemporary clique, and then you've got the like pretty books clique, and you've got the fantasy clique, and it's all awesome. They're all Bookstagrammers, right? But I was like, where are the horror fiends? Like, where are my horror people, right? So I'm putting out all these pictures of like, you know, just random weird horror pictures. And so I'm really glad I found you guys, and like I found more Mother Horror as well. You guys should totally follow her. She also reviewed Kill Creek, and she also loved it. I know some of you guys didn't, but I did. But yeah, like Instagram's awesome. You should leave, if you guys are watching, you should leave your Instagram like handles down below so that we can check you guys out, because we need more horror people on Instagram. Come on.
Yes.
Yes, definitely.
I kind of started a Bookstagram dedicated to all the darker Bookstagrams, and I've kind of fell off that. But I want to start it up.
Revive it.
Wait.
Bring it back from the dead.
Wait, darker than what you have right now?
No, it's a featuring dark Bookstagrams, not myself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, got you.
Yeah.
I'd love that.
Yeah.
I want to find more darker horror books. You know, there's loads of like, you know, like pagan or witchy or like gothic accounts, but they're just not book related. And there's loads of film accounts as well, but again, not book related. So if you feature bookish like horror accounts, I'm there every day, every second, every day.
I'll start it up again. I put the username on the chat.
Good.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'll check it out.
Oh yeah.
So we just went through like what everyone, well, we were saying we were going to talk about briefly, non-spoilery, what everyone thought of the book. I think I'm the only one who loved the book.
So I'll talk about all my thoughts when we go into the more of the live and the more spoilery things. I just didn't like connect with it so well all through the middle parts. At the beginning, I immediately attached myself to TC Moore. Like, I loved her character, and I was like, "Oh, this book's gonna be so good." And then like it was leading into stuff, and I was like, okay, it's gonna start getting exciting. It's gonna start picking up, and then it wasn't picking up for me until like the very end.
Yeah.
So those were my thoughts.
What did you think, Marie?
I have very mixed feelings about it because there were some things about it that I loved and that were done so masterfully, and then there were other things that just I felt like I just didn't connect with it. I'm probably not the target audience for the book. I'm not really sure. I'll get into.
I'm dying for us to get into the spoilery part so that we can get into.
Yes. All right. Well, quickly then, Cass, what was your initial thoughts about after reading it?
I really did like it. A 3-star probably doesn't sound like it, but I did like it. Just it was so predictable for me. Like that's the thing that just bumped it down to like a 3. It's like I want to be wowed, you know. I don't want to be like, oh yeah, that happened. I knew it. It's like, yeah, it was super predictable. So that's it was okay. I liked it.
See, for me, it was super predictable, and that's why I nearly gave it 4 stars. But what surprised, it was not what I expected in terms of like the meta-ness of it. So I'm all about format. I'm all about like onion levels in a book. And this was the first horror novel that I read that was a critique on the horror community and the horror genre. And what I thought was absolutely brilliant, you guys notice that in the first chapter, Sam is giving a lecture to students where he is going through all of the points that a good Gothic novel follows. And then the author follows those exact points. It's like it was, so what I find really clever is it was super predictable, but on purpose. It was like a purposeful critique of horror. And so what got me was not the story, it was the clever thing behind the story. So like everything that happened, I expected to happen, but I just loved the postmodern like meta-ness of it. It was like, I don't know, it was like social commentary on horror as a culture. So for me, that was, it wasn't scary. It was gory, but it wasn't scary. It was just clever, you know? I was like, I was reading this and I was like, yeah, like this is like really clever. You've got the 4 different horror authors who represent a different type of horror. You've got all the tropes. You've literally got an author who told you exactly what he was going to do at the beginning of the book, then did it. It's got a double reversal at the end. That's ace. I loved it.
That's so true.
Scary. Yeah. If you're looking for a scary book, this is not the book for you at all. But if you're looking for something a bit clever and a different take on the horror haunted house, that's a bit, you got to think about it a little bit in a sort of funny way, like a sort of wink to the horror community and to horror authors. You know what? This was a book for horror authors. This was for people in the craft of writing horror, I think. I think I've stumped you all.
Oh, no. No, I mean, like, yeah, that's so true what you were talking about, how, like, it was, like, all the layers and the cleverness of the formatting and everything
was, it was
definitely
so
all there, like, when I'm thinking about it. Because it was, not all of the information was presented to you up front. It was very, like, as the story progressed on, you saw the other layer of Sam and more or whatever that was pertaining to that section. And you continue on and you see another layer of them. So there definitely was that like cleverness and like, those levels that went through.
Even more than that though, because like you've got Scott Thomas literally saying this is what a horror novel does, right? So you've got 5 points. Okay, I'll read out the points. Okay, so he goes, right.
Yeah, go for it.
The first point he says about a good Gothic horror, he says, 1, emanation from a single location. So you've got the house. 2, a sense of forbidden history. You've got a double forbidden history about the house. On top of that, you've got a forbidden history for each of the characters, including the interviewer. 3, an atmosphere of decay and ruin. Again, you've got that about the house, and you've got it about each of the characters as well. And each of the characters is their own single emanation of location. And then I think there's a fourth, corruption of the innocent. The whole book is about that. So the authors go into this house, which is all of those things, and has been corrupted by from their innocence. You've got the characters being corrupted by their innocence, in that none of them believe about supernatural, and then they all come out believing, or not. Like, they didn't come out. And then you've got corruption of the innocent. Then you've got corruption of the innocent because none of them remember things about their past. What? There's so many. This book is like Inception, man. It's so good. I really want to chat to Scott Thomas. I'm going to be like, high five, man. That was awesome. Can you imagine how difficult it would have been to like write all these different layers? And he told us in the first chapter he was going to do it. Oh my God. So what did you guys think?
How do I follow up that?
I
know. Let's see. Cass, do you want to go?
Oh my God. Just throw me to the
wall. I'm throwing you under the bus. I mean, I already kind of said that, like, what you're saying, Ling Don, is like so true, like the cleverness of the layers and everything like that. And I didn't even think about that point when you were saying how he, like, in the first chapter, he basically presented the entire format of what the book's going to be. But I still think that there could have been, like, a more, I don't know, way of grasping me into the storyline.
Yeah.
And a more like a little bit more, have a little bit more twists and turns and a little bit more exciting parts.
Yeah, that would have
kind of drive the story forward versus like so for the most part of the book was, the plot line was driven by the characters of the story. So they were as they grew or deteriorated or whatever, the plot line continued on. But I think that there could have been some more dynamics of things actually happening to them and their reactions to them that could have driven that forward even stronger than it actually was.
Yeah, I get what you mean completely. I think, yeah, I definitely had that sense, like, when I was in that middle section, that's when I was like, oh, okay, like, but then I just, like, realized what he was doing. And I think if he had done all those things on top, it would have been amazing. But I think probably, I wonder, you know, I'd love to ask him, like, was that a conscious choice because you were writing a commentary on horror, or was this accidental? You know, like, did you think about doing, you know, more twisty things that we kind of expect from a haunted story? Or, like, I just want to know, was that a conscious thing? I just what about you guys?
Yeah, Marie, Cass, anything to add?
I don't know what to add to that.
I mean, we can always use more. The one thing I do wish was that we'd had a bit more of a history of the sisters, like, because at the end of the book, it's almost like it's just like a throwaway comment about the sisters. You'd had this whole development. Are we in the spoilery bit yet? Because I don't want to.
Probably.
Well, so you've got this whole element. Part of a massive, like, mystery in the book was like, okay, you've got this stairway leading to a brick wall. Very cool concept, completely wasted, like, in a narrative, like, plot way. Because I'm just, like, praising the craft of it because that's what I do. But let me turn off my writer brain and let me switch on my reader brain. Okay, you've got this wall that leads to this, like, secret bedroom. You've got the promise of a sister having been locked in there who is, like, confined to a wheelchair, and then a character gets into the room and finds, like, scratches on the walls and the ceiling, even though that would have been impossible for someone in a wheelchair. And it's like, all these questions, and then he literally solves it in, like, a sentence. And I was like, Like,
Yeah.
really,
Yeah.
he could have played on that so well.
It was anticlimactic, yeah.
Yeah, that was. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I should like really put my reader hat on before we do these discussions. So I'm gonna be like, oh, this sentence was so finely crafted. Here, and she used the like save the cat technique.
Yeah. I have to do that when I go through the book, and just from page 1, I have to be like, am I reading this as a writer or am I reading this as a reader? Because my mind has 2 different viewpoints when I'm going along.
It's really hard for me to switch it off. You know, it's like
I can't switch.
yeah, I got a job at the cinema once because I love movies, and then I just hated the cinema because I worked there. And it's kind of done that to me with books, except that I still love books, but I really struggle to read as a reader. It takes a really gripping book to do that for me. So I guess that's that's like a point against this book because it wasn't able to do that for me. Whereas another book I read, which I will recommend to you guys later in private, is just like wowing me as a reader. Sorry, you guys talk amongst yourselves. I'm gonna have a drink. God,
You're good. You're good. Let's go ahead and just dive into the more spoilery things, and let's talk about the characters right now and like what we thought of each character. Who do you want to start with? You want to start with Sam? I feel like that's the obvious choice.
Yeah, I think
off the book.
I think by order of when we met them.
Yeah.
I don't even remember the order. All I remember was Sam and then TC.
I wrote it down.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Yeah. So Sam starts.
All right. Let's see. Cass, do you want to start with what you thought about Sam throughout like his whole arc and everything? Whatever thoughts you have.
I think I was more interested in his storyline. I think because he was the first one to be introduced.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. It was weird. It's just the way everything ended, just like we didn't even see how he I'm jumping, but we didn't even see how he was he reconciled with his wife, and like it was just like thrown at us out of nowhere, and it was just like, I don't know, it's just his storyline was like, I felt like it was all over the place.
I had a similar thought in the fact that I just wanted him to be with TC more.
Me too.
Yeah. But I had a train of thought. I lost my train of thought. Someone go. Okay, my train of thought again. Marie, what did you think?
I have lots of opinions about fucking everything. So Marie, feel free, because otherwise I'm just going like la, 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 an hour later.
That's a good anchor point. She can just fill in all the blanks that we missed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's better that way.
All right, Marie, what did you think about Sam?
I guess I connected the most with Sam, but there still wasn't very much to connect with there. I think he was just kind of meant to be more of the projection character. Like you said, Dawn, this was probably mostly written for horror authors and people who know a lot about horror authors. Yeah. And so there wasn't much to him, but I found him to be, I guess, the least abrasive.
Like the least offensive. That's true. Yeah. His story definitely, like, as he progressed throughout the book, his story progressed the slowest for sure. Like, you didn't really know what was like actually happened, you know, as in his childhood, until like pretty much the very end of the book. But little pieces and stuff were fit in, and I lost my train of thought again.
Well, like, Sam was definitely the least interesting, but he was that on purpose. He was the generic character, so he was also the cliche of the novel. So each of the authors represents a different form of cliche in horror. Sam was the generic character with a hidden past, with scars, who's tattooed over his scars. You know, that was representing, I think, you know, the fact that he's tried to forget the past, but he's the like wounded author who is writing to escape something. He's not writing to shock and awe like T.C. Moore, which is why I fucking love her. He really was. He was just the layman. He was meant to represent the normal guy, but like the guy that the reader can relate to, the predictable one. His whole storyline is completely predictable. And he also represents the generic successful horror author that doesn't really have that many opinions. He doesn't really toe the line and he doesn't really push the boundaries. He was just the generic guy. And I think that was a very purposeful choice, which is why he's the one that lays out exactly what's going to happen in the novel. It's so perfect because as consumers of horror, we go into horror movies or books with a certain number of expectations, and he literally represents everyone. You know, I thought that was very purposefully done, and he was a very dull character. I knew the reveal, like his reveal about his past, no shocks, no surprises, and I think that was purposeful. If it wasn't purposeful, then it's clumsy writing, but I really think that this was a purposeful choice, and like really clever, because he sets up these tropes and then you expect him to defy the tropes and he doesn't, which is itself unexpected. You know what I mean? He does exactly what you think he's going to do. And it's so meta. I just love it. It's so cool. And which is why I think that it's, if you look at the Goodreads reviews, they are so divided. Some people love the book and some people hate it. And I'm that kind of author because I like to mess with the psychology of it. And I think this is exactly what Scott's done. So I think that's kind of why I get it, because I'm like, oh, and this means this, and oh, the layers. But yeah, Sam was just the generic hand-holding, like, this is what we're going to do today character. So yeah, he was the most boring.
Yeah. I mean, like, the thing with me, though, like, you were saying, like, all the layers and stuff. Layers are great, but I feel like there needs to be a stopping point, because at a certain point, you just lose me in all the layers. And I felt like that was me during Kilker.
This is why I
there was parts where I was like reading over, I was just like, wait, what happened?
You know? It's not, this is not a book for like consumers, I think. This is like for producers. It's like films, like art house films that are made for other art house filmmakers, and like you just don't get them and they're kind of shit. But then well, the other art house people being like, oh, like the colors, and like, oh, you know, I'm that annoying person. So who was the next character introduced? Was it Moore?
Yeah.
Yeah. A question popped up about Sebastian, but let's address that later on when we get to him. So T.C. Moore was next up. Obviously, I feel like we've all kind of already expressed that T.C. Moore was like our favorite. She was like the hard-hitting, like you know, darker countenance, like the more kind of horror author that you picture when you picture horror. At least when I picture horror authors are like the like kind of like darker, like dressed in black, like there's some sort of like hidden reason that they, you know, write horror. But at the same time, it's like still kind of obvious, like with her blown pupil. Like I loved that little detail because it was like very obvious that she has gone through something because of that. And like that could be a reason why she writes. But because even though it's so obvious, like people looking at her don't know what it is because she keeps it bottled up inside of her. And so I loved that little detail. Marie, what did you think about T.C. Moore?
I had really mixed feelings about her. But I recognize that they're all meant to be sort of archetypes of different people who write.
Yes.
And she filled that role like perfectly. And I still somewhat related to her because of her past and stuff. But she went like the more extreme route because that's what her character needed to do. So I guess I liked her. Yeah.
What about you, Cass?
Yeah. So I liked her. And the thing is, the entire book, I was just thinking, I want to read their books. Like, they just describe these stories, and I'm just like, I want to dive deeper. And with hers, she was a number one. Like, I want to read her books so bad.
Yeah, I love that detail that Scott Thomas did. It was like he wrote like 10 novels in one novel. As I was reading, I was like, wow, this was like very good.
Yeah, I love that she was an indie author too. It's like,
oh yeah, that's true. I totally forgot about that. I love it. I was like, that's my goal. Be an indie author,
yeah, and respected her,
and then become a professional author. Okay, Don, fill in the blanks.
Yeah, no, she was cool. She was, again, a complete stereotype. I loved what Marie said. Yes, they're all archetypes. They're all an archetype of a type. She was the typical cynical, abrasive, tough girl with a wounded, gooey center, who's like completely afraid of intimacy because of her past. Again, her and Sam have parallels because they've both got visual injuries that you can see that they've had something difficult happen, as opposed to the following two characters where they haven't had anything happen but are either going through something or will go through something. Yeah, she was fun. I wanted more badassery from her, but I kind of love where she ended up at the end of the book with the reversal. That was cool. I thought, okay, that's interesting. Because one of the features of the book is you don't know who's going to be the vessel for the ultimate evil. I mean, it was so obvious one of them would be, and it bounced from character to character, which was so cool. And then, yeah, it ended up being her, and I was like, yeah, T.C. Moore, even though she's dead and being used as a vessel. But still, very cool, you know, like, go girls.
Yeah, it's funny on that topic when, that
was cool.
It's funny on that topic of like the final sentences or whatever when she's revealed as like the vessel. I was reading through it because so that happened in the epilogue or whatever at the end, right? So at the end of the final actual chapter, I was like, wait, there's a plot hole here. I was like, T.C. Moore like went into the darkness to like embrace the Finch sister or whatever, and I was like, and then she came out, popped out, and Sam was like, oh, there you are, like, let's get out of the house. And all that time I was just like, what happened to her? Like, are we not going to find out what happened to her during the whole time? How did she just like all of a sudden like pop out and be okay? And then I read the epilogue. It's like, okay. Like, I honestly didn't like expect that when I was reading it, and then it all clicked into making sense. But I was like, there's a plot hole here. Like, what happened? You see more. Like, do you forget about her?
I knew as soon as she popped up that it wasn't her.
So, really?
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah,
like, there were no surprises in this book. So
nope.
None at all. Like, it's the most predictable book ever. Like, even down to the fine details. But like, even with her blown pupil being healed, I was like, that's not going to stay there. That blown pupil is not going to stay there. I thought maybe that Sam would get burned as like a kind of full circle thing, but he set fire to the house, so that it kind of was a full circle thing. But yeah, no, I loved her. Her snark was awesome. She had the best lines, even if she's about to die and she's like, well, pain is pain, you know, might as well just give into the darkness. I was like, yeah, like totally true. You go, girl, you know?
Yeah. Who's up next on the characters? Cass.
Next was Daniel.
Oh, was it?
Okay, Daniel. Who does someone want to go first? Should I go first? Daniel was, so it's funny that Daniel lasted so long for me, because when I first saw him in the book, I was like, oh, he's going to be the first to die. that was my reaction to Sam, or not to Sam, to Daniel. Because of just like his innocence surrounding everything. Like, I was just like, oh, he's not gonna embrace this darkness in any way, like, and it's just gonna be the first one to go, because the darkness is gonna prey on him like a I lost an analogy, but is going to just prey on him because he's like the like sweet innocent one, kind of the more demure, keeps to himself. Then he ended up being the one that, well, I guess the darkness did prey on him because like he was the one kind of possessed by that power and the way to wanting to like kill everyone in order to get his daughter back. So in the way he was preyed on the darkness, but not in the way that I thought he would be. I thought he was going to be more like Rain White and that he would be the first to just go.
Yeah, like the physical victim.
Yeah, the physical victim, not the mental victim.
Yeah, I thought that he would be each of them represents something specific. I thought he would be the corruption of evil because he was just so innocent and he had such faith. I was like, Scott Thomas is totally gonna make him lose his faith and like make him question his beliefs. It's like the one thing that gives him strength. I was like, yeah, no, he's not gonna last. He's not gonna have faith by the end. That was hilarious to me. I'm not evil. Sorry. Like, that was so funny to me. I was like, oh, you big squishy man with your like innocent horror. You're gonna like, you're screwed basically.
Yeah. See, I sort of thought Sebastian was going to be the one that like gets taken over in the mind by the evil because
I thought he'd be the first to die. I thought that Scott Thomas was like setting us up to like this older, respectable man that we all like, you know, the godfather of horror, like the dad of horror. I thought he was going to be the first to go so that we could all cry about it. Nope.
Me too.
Yeah, I don't think anyone cried over Wainwright when he died.
No. Like, that's another thing that bugged me because Sam found the similarity between the sisters and Wainwright. I suppose it was just the house messing with him, but it would have been cool if there was some kind of connection there. Anyway, off track. Sorry, go on.
No, go for it. I think I went off track first. So good. Cass, have you talked about Daniel yet?
No. I think after TC, he was my favorite. His storyline was my favorite. The thing with his family, though, it was weird because I saw it coming, but then I didn't. And then I just knew something was going to happen to him or to his wife or to his daughter. But, like, I don't know. I didn't see it coming. I just hate that every time I read a book, there's a car accident in it. And, like, it triggers me.
Oh, no.
It triggered me so bad. So I was just crying.
Oh, no.
When that happened. Because I hate it.
That got me a little bit. Like, his reaction. Yeah. I got tearful.
Yeah, I loved how how Scott Thomas talked about like in the minds of all the other characters that we're watching that like after they spent the night in Kill Creek, that the face of Daniel as he was like wailing about his daughter was like the most terrifying thing that they all saw. Like that whole trip.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's completely 100% true in life.
That scene was so sad, but like it was beautiful in its own way. It was, I don't know,
because it was grief, like pure grief from love, you know, from real genuine love for dad for his daughter. Like, oh, I'm gonna cry. Yeah,
me too.
Yeah, that one got me. But I question, like, this accident that just happened to happen when they left the house. Was it because the house got stronger, or was it just a convenient, like, thing? Because it wasn't the house that made him lose his faith, it was the accident, completely separate. Or was it? It makes you quite nervous.
During the interview, they all went around and Wainwright asked them how they define horror personally, and then whatever their answer was is what happened to them. So his answer was loss of family and faith. And that's
I didn't even notice that.
I didn't either. Holy Jesus.
Why this book's so clever. Really good. Like, I need to go back and read that interview scene.
Right?
Yeah, I need to go back.
Wait, what were...
might discover more. If you can bear the tedium of reading it again, you might, like, pick out more. I'm not going to read it again, but, like...
Yeah, like you were saying earlier, it's kind of like Inception. You notice new things every time you go through it again.
Cool.
So who's up next?
Sebastian.
Sebastian. All right. So we have one question about Sebastian earlier, where he said, "What did you guys think about Sebastian being revealed as the house's storyteller?" And how like he was the only one to finish the book.
That surprised me. Yeah. I thought that they would all stop. You know, I didn't see that they'd stopped because one of them had finished sooner. I think that was really clever. And the fact that it was the veteran, it surprised me. That did surprise me.
Yeah, I didn't see that coming either.
Yeah, Sebastian, how I was kind of saying earlier, I thought Sebastian would be the one to like lose his mind first. And in the storyline, when I saw that he finished the book, then that was just kind of evidenced in my own mind. It was like, okay, so he was the one who kind of lost it first. Even though he finished it, because he was the odd one out, he's the one that lost it. Because rather than like having, you know, an ending like he normally would have, he says that the darkness won out. And that was like his ending to the book. Yeah. Which, you know, mirrored obviously what ends up happening kind of in a way.
Was influencing him. They were writing it, you know, from nowhere. And the inevitability of the ending was so interesting because they were all writing the same plot points, different characters, but they all followed exactly. So that was the house's influence. So the fact that the book ended badly was just inevitable. And that also predicted the ending with war because, again, meta, the author predicted everything that happened. He told the reader completely bluntly, this is what's going to happen. And I was still surprised. That's masterful. It's really hard to do that. Like, you literally imagine going to a film and they're like, right, to make a good film, you need to do ba, 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 ba. And then you see it playing out. It's very hard to then still surprise someone. And he managed it. And I was like, oh my God, yeah, of course. Like, duh. He told me already. I just forgot. Masterful. Yeah. I think I'm in love. I think I found my man, my soul, my mind soul, you know? My mind soul.
Did you guys read his bio in the back?
I did at the beginning, but I don't think I remember anything.
Yeah, he's done a lot of stuff.
Because he co-wrote like one of my favorite movies, My Super Psycho Sweet 16, and I just like, I don't know, it was like a good.
I haven't seen that, but I'm going to.
It's like a teenager MTV movie, but I loved it.
I really want to see it.
Yeah.
But I do have one more thing to say about Sebastian, but I'm going to let you guys comment first, just in case somebody else wants to say it first.
Oh, okay. Marie, do you want to go?
There's not a lot to say about Sebastian. I liked him a lot. I kind of equated him to like Lovecraft or someone who was a trailblazer in the genre like that. And he was, I don't know. There's not a lot to say about him because he was just the horror master.
Yeah.
I liked him.
I can't remember if you said what you thought already, Cass.
I don't think so. I think I was just meh about Sebastian, to be honest. It wasn't, I don't know, it didn't really intrigue me. Nothing really.
For me, he was like, I found him incredibly sad. You know, he was this guy who was once this great master of horror, and not only is his career waned, but like he's losing his memory. He's the character that represents the fear that we all have, I think, towards the end of our lives. I just found it so sad that he was this polite, well-dressed gentleman, but he was just like in the winter of everything. I thought that was really sad. And also his desire when he came to the book, to the house, he didn't have any past that he couldn't put behind him. He only had the fear that he wouldn't be relevant again. He was the complete antithesis to Moore. He was so quiet and polite compared to her abrasive forwardness. And they actually like connected in a really cute way, him and Moore. Like he kind of scoffed a little bit at her, but he also felt a kind of affection for her. But I love the fact that he had a desire the same as Sam to, Sam was worried he'd never write again. And I think Sebastian was worried he'd never be relevant again. So you've got these two characters playing on each other. But with Sebastian, he was actually, I think, the hero of the story, because the house gave him exactly what he most desired, to finish the book, to get the fame, and he still stayed. It's like the thing he wanted most. He was remembering stuff again. He was healthy and he was writing, and he still stayed in the house and tried to save them. I mean, he is the hero of the story. I absolutely love Sebastian. He really was like the dad of the story. And I was really sad when he died, because as an author, I do have those same desires. I want to keep writing. I want people to find my work. And, if you're given all those things, the pain of the sacrifice, to sacrifice your deepest desire to save people and to just become nothing and know that you're going to die, I thought that was really heroic. I loved him. He was great.
Yeah, I had pretty similar thoughts. Like, I loved, obviously, like, his death was like probably the most impactful out of everyone.
And gory,
gory too. Yeah. Blood splattered from the neck, like.
Yeah.
But kind of like how you were saying, like, but he had like all of this like sadness in his life, but he, rather than like reveling in it like Sam did, or like fighting against it like Moore did, he just kind of like accepted that it was the past, and like you can't change the past.
Yeah.
And then as like the story progressed on, and you see that the house gave him back his love.
Yeah.
Although he loved, like, having him back and having him back within his arms, like, he still like he still knew that this wasn't him. He knew that this wasn't real, that because he experienced that pain already, and he knows that it can't be like, gone over again.
Yeah.
So in the way, he's the strongest character of, he has the strongest mind, the strongest character and everything.
His love for Richard. Yeah, exactly. I mean, he went through the same thing that Daniel went through. Yeah, it was an older grief, but the same desperate love. And he made a completely different choice. And he was the only character who remained like steadfast. And I loved that there were all these like reversals about who was going to be the author. And I thought that Sebastian would be the final one. So again, that surprised me. But poor Sebastian and Richard. It was so cute. And that was his dark secret, because obviously he was gay before those kinds of things were completely accepted by society, That was so cute. I loved him the second I found out about that. I was like,
yeah, me too.
I like that storyline.
Yeah. There were
so
some tender moments there, weren't there? I'm just remembering the pieces of dialogue between him and the fake Richard, or like the brains. They were like genuinely tender.
Right.
They were, yeah. That was my favorite.
We have a question that says, what was up with Daniel's Pastor Charlie being in everyone's story, by the way? I don't remember how was he in everyone's story?
Did I miss that?
Did anyone catch on to that?
I did. I only remember him through Daniel.
Yeah.
On that one scene.
I kind of spaced over him. He was a bit too weird.
Yeah. I mean, well, since he's like one of the obviously most immediate like side character, like him and like both of the wives, like you skip over their parts. But I don't know if maybe like he like maybe he like had like some more like different parts to him too that I just
feel like maybe we missed that, and that's like another layer, and then I missed it. Damn. Come on, Dawn. Why didn't you see it?
Yeah, the person who asked that question, like, let us know like what kind of things that you saw in that. You sparked our curiosity.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so then going into Wainwright. Have we talked about Wainwright?
No.
Yeah. Okay, so he's the last one. So let's talk about him. Who wants to start?
I expected more from him.
Yeah.
I thought he would be a mastermind and that he had something up his sleeve, and then he just became like a really scared little boy who was playing with fire. I kind of wish there was a mastermind and that he knew more than he did.
See, I thought he was going to be like, okay, so I thought Daniel was going to be the first to die or whatever. Obviously, like Sam was going to be the survivor because he was portrayed as the main like protagonist throughout the whole thing. I thought that Wainwright was going to be that kind of like annoying douchebag who I want to die first, but is actually not going to die first. Exactly. He's going to be like hanging on to like the very end, and then he's going to die. But then he was the first one. I was like, okay, I'm okay with that. That was dark of me, but like,
the thing that that scene where Sam saw his skin like the sister, saw the sister's skin like his, I thought that was gonna go somewhere.
Me too.
But it never did, and I wanted it to go somewhere so bad. So that's like why I was just so mad at the end that nothing happened.
Yeah, absolutely. That was such a shame. It was just chalked down to like the house influencing him and like making him question things, and I was like, oh, okay.
That would have been so cool.
Like, I have a question. Was he influenced by the house? Because at the beginning part, we see the picture or whatever that Sam sees, and he sees that his eyes are glossed over like the Finch sisters are. And so immediately we have that curiosity of like, oh, the house is controlling Wainwright. But like, what was it? We found out later on that he received the book, like that prairie book or whatever about the house from Adudel. But like, was he actually ever controlled by the house, or was he just like kind of going through life and trying to make it on his own?
That's a really cool question, actually, because when we find out at the end that Adudel guy, or whatever, I can't pronounce it, had, the author of the fictitious non-fiction book about the house had sent it to him directly. That's so interesting. Like, I never thought about that. Maybe Wainwright was influenced in the beginning. Like, that's so interesting. I never thought about that. That's a really good point.
But like, was he influenced and then they let go of him, and then they influenced him again and then they let go of him?
Yeah, because they did seem to bounce around, didn't they? Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, make up your mind. Yeah, no, that gives me like a bit of hope about his character. Like maybe there was more there that I just spaced over because I expected something so different, which is the story. My whole experience with this book is that initially I expected something different until I realized, oh, that's a cool trick. Oh, that's a cool trick. So again, with Wainwright, that's a cool trick. If that was intentional, very cool. I gotta think about that.
So she answered on the chat saying that Pastor Charlie was in everybody's story when they were writing it.
Oh.
And then he showed up at the end in real life. I did not notice that detail.
Me either.
Like, good eye. Like, I did not notice that. Seriously. So that almost begs the question too. Of course, none of us really remember much about this pastor guy, but like,
is that the house influencing us?
Is that the house? Oh, is that the house influencing us? The one on the chat guy is the house.
One of us.
No, that's cool. I mean, because one of the main themes in the book was that I really appreciated was the idea of representing the damage that gossip can do and the power that gossip holds. And obviously in this setting, it grows the house, it gives it strength. And in some ways, religion is kind of like gossip. I wonder if he was tying a parallel between those two things. I mean, that would be really clever if he did that.
Hmm. I don't know. Interesting.
Yeah, I need
let's
to
see.
think about that.
Let's talk about the Finch sisters. Like we all kind of mentioned a little earlier how they are set up to be this like big part of the storyline, and then we don't like actually really get to see their story. And then at the very end, we see like, oh, it was I get mixed up between the two. That Rachel got the leg, or no, Rebecca got her legs back, and then locked Rachel in the room.
That was cool. That
yeah,
little thing that was like, so quick.
Yeah.
I
I would have liked to have seen that.
Seen like that like unfold, like as like a flashback, you mean?
Yeah, that would have been nice.
Yeah, and it just seemed so pointless. It was like, well, why did you put that into the novel if it was such a throwaway? If it was if they felt like just a device. And they weren't even the original owners. Like there's another
right. Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Owners barely
never showed up.
And
I was upset by that.
Like,
Goodman and his wife or whatever, the slave, like they're mentioned from the beginning or whatever, but they actually never showed up in the house and in the storyline.
Exactly. It almost feels like they were devices planted in there because all films have those devices, creepy sisters and like the horrible history. So like it almost feels like it was another cliche in a book of cliches to make a point about cliches and gossip. But like I just wanted a bit more, but I think again that was a conscious choice. I don't think that was accidental. I just was sad about it.
About
their just lack of the investment in the sisters, although compared to the investment in the novel and like the novelists, it wasn't huge, but I just found them really cool and interesting. I wanted them to find like a secret box of like I don't know, just some kind of just more.
Yeah, I think the whole point why I was zooming through it so fast was because I wanted to know about the owners of the house, and I never got that.
Yeah, for me as well.
That was like the one thing I was most excited about.
Yeah, they seemed really creepy. I did love the idea that, you know, again, one of the sisters got what she wanted the same way that each of the characters maybe could have got what they wanted. And then it was like you know, so like it's a looping thing. It's just a cliche after a cliche after a cliche, which I think is why it was done on purpose. It just was an unsatisfying cliche. The reversal was so cool. It could have been so good.
What did y'all think of like the whole wall aspect? Because like looking back on it, I feel like that wasn't developed in any way.
I feel like it was so unnecessary.
It was so like it was mentioned once when they were like in the house or whatever, how like Kate filmed a little snippet of video and then saw like the sister standing at the edge of the wall, and like that was the first like thing that the readers see of like, okay, something's going on there. But then it's like not really like they don't really play on it very much. They just kind of are like, that's what happened, like she bricked up the wall, whatever. Like they didn't build up on anything. And then they are writing their stories and they're, you know, stopped at the last part where like the one brick fell out of the wall, and now it becomes a mystery about what's behind that wall, and they're all driven back by that mystery. But then like nothing actually happened, like nothing's really behind the wall. The only thing that's revealed is like the scratch marks.
I think exactly. I think that's a perfect representation of the book. It's like they struggled so much to get through that frickin' wall, and it was like, oh, and that's like kind of the book. It's like you invest so much in the book, and then it's like, oh, okay. Again, I thought like from a structural interesting point, I thought that was a cool metaphor for the whole. It's almost like this book was an experiment, like a social experiment. Yeah, I was excited about that.
So we have a question that says, so Rebecca's death at the beginning was a rumor then? So I think no, what we found out in the book, right, is that Rebecca died, but it was actually Rachel.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Was
So
I
Rebecca
don't-
killed Rachel.
Yeah, so
And
it
then
was
became Rebecca.
yeah, it was the abled sister, whichever our sister it was, he was locked in the room under the pretense of being the disabled sister.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
All right. Do we
I wanted
have...
to see that so bad.
Yeah, I
I'm
love
so
like,
mad.
That could have been so cool as a scene, you know, as a flashback or but
Mhm.
again, it wasn't the point of the book.
Yeah, I guess so. Like the point of the book is about like this like temptations or whatever that they
Yeah,
want
it's
to-
about
Yeah.
gossip. It
Mhm.
literally is. It's a metaphor for gossip. It just uses a horror novel and a horror novelists plural to do that, you know. But it's also kind of a metaphor for gossip. It's like it's so hard to get it started, and then it spreads, and then it there's just nothing behind it a lot of the time. I think that's a really cool analogy for what what the book was saying, even though it was boring to read. I still love the book. I was
Yeah. As I mentioned earlier, maybe if I had like started reading it as a writer versus as a reader, I would have picked up on some of the more intricacies. But
Yeah.
as a reader, it just wasn't.
That was a cool experiment.
Yeah. So what was y'all's like final rating then at the end of it all? Like
I
start
gave it
rating.
a 3.
A 3?
Yeah.
Like a solid 3 or like 3 point something?
No, a solid 3.
A real 3? I'd say I give it a 4. I was at a 3.5, but I feel like Dawn pushed me up to a 4. Because of the intricacies and the layers and stuff that went on. But in the end, I wasn't like impressed with the entertainment value. And I actually mentioned this to Marie earlier, that if this hadn't been our Book Fiends Book of the Month, I probably would have DNF'd it halfway through.
Me too.
Because I wasn't engaged with it. I was just like, okay, are we getting to the exciting parts yet? And finally it gets to the end, and I'm happy that I, stayed holding on. But if I didn't have the Book Fiends, like this book club or whatever for it, then I probably wouldn't have finished it.
I probably
you probably would have. Well,
yeah, because
you
I hate
books like crazy.
DNFing. What?
I said you you read through books like crazy. Like you read like I don't know one every day or something.
Maverick and I have to
so impressed by you
because we're like snails, so we have to like really choose what we're gonna invest our time in.
Exactly.
Now, sorry, go on.
Okay, no, go ahead. I was just gonna say, Cass, you talked about Scribd to me the other day, and I like downloaded it using your link, and
I got an email. Yeah,
like almost read I've already almost read another book. Like I have like 2 hours left of it, and I was just like, wow, this would never have happened if I was reading it. like this would have taken 2 weeks. Like it only took me 3 days.
I like how there's a lot of different formats too for everyone.
What is it? What is Script?
Oh, it's an app. It's basically kind of like another, I don't know what I would compare it to. Basically it has audiobooks, books just that you can download. And with my link you get 2 months free, but after that you pay $9 and all of the books are free. You could just listen to as many as you like. I use it for audiobooks because I hate sitting in one place for so long.
I
use it
for
for that.
like for like
Yes.
cool.
Kind of like
Yeah,
Audible, but it also has other different formats. It has like actual book that you can download on your phone.
Oh, that's a cool
Yeah, it's more
idea.
Yeah.
Okay. I love audiobooks. I was looking for this one as an audiobook because I was starting to think I'm never gonna get this done in time. It's not there.
Me too. Yeah, but it's not there.
Yeah, exactly.
Next month's book is on audiobook.
Yeah, I'm gonna get it probably. Is this one for you guys who don't know? The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein. But yeah, no, I gave Kill Creek 5 stars initially, but actually after talking to you guys, I'm gonna go down to 4.5. But since I can't do a half, I'm gonna do 4. Because I realized the only other books that I've given 5 stars are ones that I can't find anything wrong with, and I clearly found stuff wrong. So I'm gonna adjust that as we speak on Goodreads.
Marie, what about you? What was your final rating?
I would have given it 2 stars, and that's just because of the craft, you know, like Dawn said, like reading it as a writer, that's where those 2 stars come from. But reading it as a reader, I was not fond of it because I feel like the story suffered for all the meta stuff he was doing. And he was doing the meta stuff well, but the story and the characters suffered. It was definitely not so much a ghost story as like a tulpa story, because it was definitely a thought form and not, you know, a haunting. And there were so many red herrings that would have been more interesting than that just didn't go anywhere. Like when Wainwright and Kate were first introduced, I was really fascinated by it. He kept talking about this rubbery looking mask skin, and then that never got explained. And I thought maybe because they kept hinting at the relationship between the two of them in a very like heavy-handed way, I thought maybe they were sort of a parallel to the original builders of the house, and that might go somewhere too, because they were also an interracial couple, and he was pointedly Irish, and I thought maybe that, I don't know, I thought it was going to go somewhere, and then it didn't. Yeah. And that happened a lot. So the characters
were big thing, yeah.
Two-dimensional. I just didn't connect with the story very well, like I wanted to. But, you know, like I said, probably not the target audience for this. I don't like, I've experienced enough like violence in my life that I don't like gratuitous violence and gore and stuff in what I read. And I didn't expect this book to go there because I thought it was going to be more of a paranormal, creepy thing. And then toward the end there, it went like full slasher. I don't know. There was a lot, and there were a lot of like little things throughout it that I was nitpicking, like his comment about how TC doesn't work out to the point of being grotesque. She just, you know, she's just so hot. And that bothers me too. Like a strong woman is somehow disgusting. And then the amount of times that he referenced Daniel being fat was just excessive. I have so many notes through my Kindle app. I'm like, we get it. We get it. He's fat, dude. We get it. We get it. So there's just a lot of little things that like, I just disconnected from it. But I finished it.
Yeah. Because of Book Fiends.
I know, I agree with that. Yeah. I didn't think about the fat comment because I just assumed that it was the setup for when he loses weight later, like to illustrate stress. But maybe you don't have to mention it that many times. But the thing is, they also mentioned Sam's scars like over and over. It's like, okay, we get it. They also mentioned her eye over and over. It's like, yeah, okay, we get it. So I don't think that was specific to Daniel. I think he just literally was like putting it in our face. And they mentioned Sebastian losing his memory like quite often as well. I think maybe that was a bit like heavy-handed. Yeah. Yeah,
well,
but definitely
it ended up kind of almost needing to be heavy-handed to get into our minds that like the house changed them of all of these like very characteristic things that were about them.
Yeah,
it changed their outlook.
I mean, you can do that skillfully. I think probably that's the one thing I'd say. Even though I love this book in terms of like a craft tool and a cool like a science experiment, I think you're capable of doing both. I tried to do that with The Dead House, where I was trying to affect the psychology of the reader. I don't know if it succeeded, and certainly I don't have the layers that this book has, but I do think you can do both together. Yeah, you guys have given me a lot to think about. This has been amazing.
Yeah, Do we want to like finish it off with any like favorite quotes that y'all have? I know I have like two that I underlined that were actually at the beginning of the book when I was like, "Ooh, this is gonna lead somewhere," and then it didn't.
And then it didn't.
But I guess I'll start. Well, since I have mine pulled up, if any of you guys want to like pull something up. But mine was on in T.C. Moore's chapter, like this one was like the second chapter when she's like talked about, and she's in her meeting with the screenwriters and like the producers of the movie and stuff, and she's talking about like what horror is to her, and like I loved like her concepts of like what horror means. So I'll just like read through this. This is on page 25 if any of you have like the physical book towards the bottom. She says, because that's what horror is, pain, unbearable, all-consuming pain, so real and brutal that we almost crave it in a sick way. It prickles our flesh and gets our pussies wet. We needed to feel real. It reassures us that we exist, and what's truly frightening and what is when we realize that our pursuit of that sensation, of that reassurance of our own validity has led us to the dark, terrible place from which there is no escape. That's true horror, when the seducer turns on us and we are no longer in charge. We've lost control, and now we have to pay an awful, unspeakable price. Anyway,
yeah, I have thoughts on it. I think that's definitely horror for some people. It isn't for me. I find horror quite a safe space, actually, weirdly, perversely. But yeah, I thought that was she had a lot of cool quotes and cool lines.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I'd thought to like underline them. Damn.
I was telling Marie earlier that my plan was to like annotate the book and like underline things like Cass does. And with that first quote, I was like, "Ooh, I'm gonna underline this." I took out my pencil and like I had like a little tab ready, and I was gonna put it on the book. And the moment I put it on, I was like, "No, I can't," because it was like messing with like my OCD of like having the book being pristine. So I like quickly like took off the tab and erased the pencil mark.
The thing is, I used to be like that too. But then one day I was just looking at my bookshelf and I was like, these books look like everybody else's books. Like, what makes them my books? And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to write on them. I'm going to put my thoughts in this book and make it mine. It was like an epiphany. Like, why am I keeping them so perfect? Like, no, they're my babies, you know? I get to do that. But I do have my favorite quote. It's on page 95. And it's about him talking about Al-Dudel, his book. Basically, he says, yes, even the Al-Dudel book deserved to exist because the man himself had sat down and pounded keys until all of the clutter in his brain was carefully organized and displayed for others to experience. This is why we do it, Sebastian told himself as he looked down the row of leather-bound tomes. To live on, to exist when we stop existing, to be remembered. It's just,
I like that.
That was so beautiful. Yeah.
You know, I've just realized that that's a recurring thing, because the quote that I had was when Wainwright sits them all down and he asks them each in turn, why horror? And so he goes, Mr. Cole, you first. Of all the genres, why horror? So Sebastian says, the goal of the written word... Oh, I'm on page 143 at the bottom. The goal of the written word has always been to explain to man those things which seem unexplainable. We write to understand the world, but more importantly, we write to understand our place in it. I never set out to be a writer of fantastic fiction. I simply understood the dichotomy of the world. Good cannot exist without evil, light without darkness. It just so happens when I first sat down at my old Remington No. 5, my very first typewriter, the darkness interested me most. It wasn't intentional. And then you've got another author who answers, which is more, and she says, as a rule, she's on 145, the page 145. She says, as a rule, I don't react, I act. Sebastian's style is elegant, quaint. I suppose you could say out of all of us, he writes the closest thing to honest-to-God literature. But no disrespect, the golden days of beaver cleaver and good humor bars, and there's nothing left to fear but fear itself are over. They've been raped and tortured and left for dead. The only thing to fear these days is everything. Strangers, neighbors, your friends, your family, yourself. And she goes on this whole rant about, I love that line. She goes on about what horror is. And then she says on page 146, horror no longer goes bump in the night. Horror stuffs the bodies of dead hookers in his crawl space and then puts a 12-hour nursing shift, pulls a 12-hour nursing shift taking care of your sick mother. Horror sits in his cubicle and fantasizes about sucking the toes of the high school cheerleader he plans to strangle after work. Horror stays awake at night, dreaming up ways to hurt you and your family and your pets and everything you hold dear. Horror is perversion. So that's her take on it. And then again, they all answer what horror is. And this whole book is what each of them think horror is. Again, very clever. And I just realized you guys giving these quotes, that's another thing that's stated over and over and over in the book. Fucking clever, man. So clever. Very cool.
All right. So I guess, do we have any other final thoughts? Or do we want to end it here? No other final thoughts?
Yeah, this book definitely gave us a lot to think about and to digest. And I think that in itself makes it a book worth reading, because we've had a really intense discussion with completely different opinions about it. And I think it's caused really fanatical reactions. And that's exactly what, again, he was writing about. Mind blown. Yeah, I like that.
Okay. I'm glad you did. And thank you everyone so much for watching us, and especially if you're watching the replay. I hope you enjoyed this chat and got a lot out of it too. As like Dawn was saying, like this book definitely brings out a lot of different opinions. And even if you didn't watch this live, go ahead and leave a comment below too, like just what your thoughts was about the whole book, and any specific points that you want to make that you noticed about the book. Just let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear them. But going forward, it is March 2nd, actually, technically. We didn't get to do this at technically the end of February. It is March 2nd, but that means that we are officially going to get started on The Dark Descent by Elizabeth Frankenstein by Kirsten White. So if you haven't gotten this book, hurry over and get it, or like the audiobook, paperback, ebook, whatever you want, and read this with us during the month of March. And at the end of March, we'll come back again and do another live chat about it and talk to you all about what we thought of the book. Okay. Thank you so much, Dawn, Marie, and Cass, for joining in on this and co-hosting Book Fiends with me. I have so much fun doing this with y'all. So thank you.
Yeah.
I love our chats.
Yes,
me too. Although technically for me it's March 3rd because it's 2 a.m. for me.
Oh wow.
Very true.
Okay, I'm a
vampire. Yeah. We're all kind of vampires, but I think you're like vampire.
I'm just a giggly vampire. I'm so off brand. I'm just a hodgepodge, who knows? Who knows?
Yeah. Well, again, thank you guys for joining in, and thank you everyone watching the replay and watching live and interacting with us. We love having you here. So yeah, we're gonna be finishing the live again. Thank you guys. Bye. Final buys.
Bye.